Look beautiful, and I'm used to your hair dresses by now. Uh, Hello, how are you? Uh, oh, wait a minute. Adetokundo Borishade, Dr.
Yes.
Adetokundo Borishade. I like a day better, okay? I want to welcome you to this brief interview
Ah,
on Wake Up and Live's Actor Studio. And this is a project called Wake Up to Life Out of the Ashes, where we are showcasing 4 African American playwrights. And this project is being funded by the Cuyahoga Arts and Culture. And we want to welcome Ade, Dr. Reverend Ade Borishade, as one of the 4 featured playwrights who's beautiful. It's a monologue called To Be or Not to Be African.
yes.
And it's a wonderful story about Kira, or do you pronounce her Kyra?
Kira.
Kira, that's how I pronounce her.
Yes.
Now tell us a little bit about what prompted you to write To Be or Not to Be African?
Because it is an ongoing struggle.
Yes, it is.
African people in America go through something no other race of people, so-called race of people, are plagued with, and that's identity.
Yes.
Here in America, if you are Chinese, they can tell you which generation of Chinese they are. If you're Arabic, they can tell you, I am Arabic. How many generations? I'm a 3rd generation. If you are Italian, I'm a so-so generation Italian or Irish or anything. There is never a problem. But in America, with African people in America, we have been so psychologically damaged that we don't want to identify with exactly who we are. We want to be as far away from being African as possible, which is a big problem. And I don't want to sound condescending, but we live in the real world. And when we have people, males, for example, I'm going from experience, males who look like Marcus Garvey, someone whom I have known from some years ago, looking like Marcus Garvey with that full-figured, robust, dark skin, heavy, facial featured person, who in every meeting we would have was always talking about his Irish ancestors. That's a form of sickness when you can look in the mirror and you see Africa written all over you. And yet you want to look like someone who is your polar opposite. And I was new to the group. And after 2 meetings, I found it annoying, aggravating. And I saw the sickness and I asked him one question, which probably changed his entire life. I asked him, do you go to any of the, it was a series of questions. Do you go to any of the Irish pubs? And I saw his visage start to change. I followed with another question. Have you been to Ireland? He still could not answer, and he began to perspire. I asked him a further question. Do you know your grandparents' names? Then he became agitated and began to, just become agitated. And then I asked, do your Irish relatives invite you to any of their family reunions? He turned around, he never spoke to me again.
And that was one of the precipitating factors as to how you came up with this creative work about this young lady questioning her heritage. Is that correct? I know you have many experiences.
Many.
Yes.
In present day.
Yeah. And tell us just a hint
Yes.
about your experiences and your background, because you're quite a scholar. And you spent a lot of time in Africa. So can you give us a thumbnail sketch of your background and how it pertains to being a playwright?
Oh, wow. I'm going to make this as concise as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I was born and bred in Cleveland. I'm a native Clevelander and proud to be. But from my earliest memory, I had this African thing inside of me. Perhaps by the influence of my father.
Was he an American or was he?
He was American. Okay. Both of my parents were from Fayette, Mississippi.
Okay, way back.
Way back. But my father went to one lecture, much like Malcolm X's experience. Mm-hmm. My father went to one lecture delivered by Marcus Garvey when he was a young man and a student at Alcorn College in Mississippi. My father worked as a cook in a logging camp and paid his way through 2 years of Alcorn College. But he went to this lecture by Marcus Garvey, and he said it changed his life. He became a Black nationalist by sentiment for the rest of his life. So I was taught to have this pride in Africanity, probably from day one, as an influence of my father.
And that shows the power of the influence of a male figure in the family.
Yes.
To have influence on the children.
Yes. So I became a young woman. I was holding little office jobs as, secretary and then executive secretary, right on up the line to where I was at one time, a paralegal. And I was experiencing racism on every one of those jobs. Racism and harassment on one of them, terrible harassment. And I was always conscious of it. They just, no matter how hard I worked, I was a good employee, but there was always some kind of problem, dislike, this attitude coming from my environment. And it was making me sick. I developed colitis.
Oh yeah, that was making you sick, all right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I decided it's my environment. And I'm leaving, I'm going to Africa. When I was a young girl, my father had that kind of spirit that he attracted these African students during the 60s. He attracted these African students that came in contact with him at, what's the iron ore company in Cleveland that has closed down?
Cleveland Cliff.
Republic Steel.
Republic Steel. Okay, that's one of them, the big one.
And the students were working their summers. Our home became their home. And these were students that went on back home after graduating from university in America. They went back home to Liberia and to Kenya and to some other, the Congo, and became leaders in their country. Those are other stories for another day. Let me keep this
We
short.
only got a few minutes here.
Yes, yes. Since I had friends in Liberia, I went to Liberia. And I had about $20 in my pocket. But I had that self-confidence. I know I can make it. If I can make it in America with all this racial opposition, I know I can make it back home. That's the way I thought of it. And I did. So I did my first 6-year tour from 1972 until 1978. By that time, my spirit decided it's time to go home and finish your education. So I did. Wilberforce, bachelor's degree, Ohio State, master's degree, and then finally Temple University, where I was one of the first students to enroll in the Africana Studies or African American Studies at that time, department under Molefi Asante. Molefi Asante, I consider him my academic father. So I went on a second tour in 2008 back to Liberia. I was recruited to come back to Liberia to found the Africana and Liberian Studies Department. So I created an Afrocentric curriculum that was across the spectrum. I came back home 2013. It's like God said, okay, you've made your contributions in Liberia. I won't talk about those, not important. I did it, I'm happy. I came back home and started to make whatever contributions I could make here. And when I arrived home, I found young people and students who are not reading. They're all playing with gadgets.
These gadgets.
And I'm wondering, they are not reading. I'm now retired. How am I going to get through to them? And drama was it.
So
I wrote
by
my
drama, you mean, the playwriting was inspired by all of your experiences.
Yes.
And so you began to tell your stories through plays.
Yes.
Okay. Now with Kira, in this play, she represents part of the concept of our project, which is about African-American folk achieving in spite of their, quote, limitations or challenges or things that are affecting their lives. And in her case, it's self-identity and self-image, self-esteem. So her story, which is told in the form of a single person to the audience, is about her struggle. And we won't reveal the ending where she decides which way she's going to go.
Sure.
If she goes at all into a direction of who she is, because everything in life would be so much better if all of the 133 million Americans and however million billions of worldwide people there are, if we all had a sense of knowing who we are, instead
Yes.
of looking outward to have other folk tell us, define us as to who we are. Self-esteem issues um, should be learned almost from the time of birth, and that's an aspect of our humanity that is not really directed um, in life, or a major element in life, I should say, that people don't examine, analyze, figure out this part of our being, because we have physical, mental, emotional, spiritual aspects. We
Yes.
also have a couple more, but that self-esteem is hardly ever addressed. And it is a particular problem, challenge among African Americans. We've been so many names. We've been colored, Negro, Black, African American. I don't even know what our current color is. Now I'm using the term, when possible, people of color, to be more inclusive of who the heck we are. Because
Well,
yeah, go
I
ahead.
don't try to include myself with anyone else.
Uh-huh. Good. I mean, that's the whole point.
Yes, I know who I am.
Okay.
And I
That,
am so proud of who I am, because African people have given the world everything.
yes. That.
African women gave all of humanity life.
Mm-hmm.
And then, when the rest of the world was in barbarity, African people alone, for thousands of years, were the only ones who first created the cradle of, well, we created the first cradle of civilization.
Mm-hmm.
For thousands of years, when the rest of the world was in barbarity.
Yeah. You
And
are
we
so.
taught them.
Mhm. You are so full of history. I mean, we could attend a lecture of yours for days because of your knowledge, your experience, and your sharing heart and spirit. So, with that in mind, let me just ask you, because your story goes on forever. Are you on any other projects now, creative writing projects now, that are subsequent to your submission about to be or not to be African on your agenda?
I'm always writing.
Okay.
I am always researching. Something a lot of people don't realize is, when you get a PhD, they call it the terminal degree because you can't get any higher.
Right.
But
Unless you get multiples. Yeah.
it is really the beginning of the rest of your life as a researcher.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone tells me, I have a doctorate, I have a PhD, my first question is, this is wonderful. What are you producing? Because we, by training, are required to present new knowledge. If
Always.
you have a PhD and you are not presenting new knowledge to the world, then what good is your PhD?
Good question. Yes.
And this, well, that's about academics and everything. But as human beings, it was Imhotep who said 5,000 years ago, know thyself. And after you know yourself, then you can recognize knowledge about the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It is important first to know yourself, accept yourself, and love yourself
On top of,
first.
yes.
And that's so
Accepting and then
important.
loving. Yeah.
It's so important because throughout your life, from birth to death, everything we experience is related to self.
Of course.
But if you don't know self, you don't know anything.
Precisely.
You just become a walking, talking dictionary.
And you are not a dictionary, because you mentioned Imhotep, which is a beautiful work about this ancient ruler. Now, in the event that somebody would love to continue the conversation with you, contact you about lecturing or teaching or creating a piece for them, or have the ability to produce Imhotep, I mean, that's not his full title, Imhotep, in a full production, how can people reach you, Professor Borishade?
They
What's
can
your
reach
contact?
me
Yeah.
at Borishade
Mm-hmm.
at gmail.com. Simple. That's B for baby,
Uh-huh.
ORISHAD for Daniel, E for Edward, Borishade at gmail.com. Now, there is a question that you asked me.
Uh-huh. Because we're drawing to a close now.
I
Yes,
know,
ma'am.
I know. Yes. I have been approached by a couple of the directors and producers. They are both. Both of them are directors slash producers
Yes, not uncommon.
from Nigeria. And when they approached me, I'm thinking, oh, Nollywood. I'm going international now.
Uh-huh.
But they have approached me about producing my latest play as a cinema, as a movie.
Mm-hmm.
One said it can be a movie or it can be a TV series, but both said that they would prefer doing a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it requires a whole new writing experience. I don't know how many more of these steep learning curves God is going to take me on.
Because neither one of us is 29 still. Well, I am. I'm still 29. I celebrate anniversaries of my 29th birthday. So I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yes. So now I am looking to, I've moved from doing it as a stage play to doing it as a screenplay. And that's a whole different format of writing,
Whole different genre.
as you very well know.
And you know what, you and I can continue that part of the conversation off screen, off camera.
Yes.
Because that's exciting to know that here we go again with your skills, your knowledge, your experiences, your heart, your spirit, that your work, your creative work has reached out, quote, across the water. And we can get an idea about your work based on the monologue by you about Kira Johnson and her quest to find out who she is at our upcoming showcase, Wake Up to Life Out of the Ashes project, showcasing 4 African-American playwrights. And we are still working on logistics, whether we will be able to present 2 live COVID-friendly performances at Rainey Institute, which is hosting and sponsoring us, or whether we will have to do the whole thing by Zoom. There's so many logistics involved. You talk about your head spinning. Well, I got my whole, what's that? The Exorcist. I got that going on.
I know the feeling.
with logistics.
Can
So,
I just add one note about Kira?
yes, ma'am.
The struggle that she has is about more than identity. She has to make a choice, a
Yes,
decision between being who she truly is or just taking the money and going along to get along.
to get along. And that's a key component
Yes,
of her discussion conversation. So
yes,
we don't want to reveal too much about that part of it, but because that raises the question about one of the premises of your play. What do I do?
absolutely.
You know, in terms of the opportunities that are presented to her.
Yes,
And you can find, we all can find out the answer to, well, I know the answer. We can all find out about that May 15th and 16th, Saturday, May 15th and Sunday, May 16th. So save the date for now, everybody.
yes,
And we will be, of course, promoting the project as time goes by, getting closer to the event so that you can attend either in person, COVID friendly at Rainey, or by Zoom. So I want to thank you very, very much for sharing some insights with us about you, Miss Ade Borishade, Reverend Dr. Person. So I want
and
you to have a lovely, beautiful rest of your day until we chat again and we can continue conversation about what you have in development right now and your interest in Rainey
yes.
Institute.
And
So
I want
thank
to
you.
thank you very much.
Oh, you're
I
more than
love your
welcome,
show.
darling. This is what this is what we do
You,
with our
yeah,
folks.
but you are just wonderful in doing what you do. And I thank God for you.
Well, bless your sweetheart. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing anything contributory to
You are.
the community. You know?
You are.
Okay,
Take it
well,
from me.
I will take that. I will accept it and appreciate it. Thanks very much. Until we meet again. Till next time. And thanks again to Cuyahoga Arts and Culture. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
You as well.
Okay.